So I'm putting out another video on the survivor balance. I'm going to do a killer one. But I'm seeing a lot of people right now talking about the survivor side of things needing to get nerfed. Now I'm going to mention this. I'm a Dead by Daylight player. I used to be red rank Dead by Daylight player back when I played that. On the survivor side. I like this game because it's a bit more... There's more to it than Dead by Daylight. Everything that Dead by Daylight gets wrong, this game gets right, except for the toxic side. And I don't really have a problem with good killer players. Like, good killer players are kind of fun to go up against. I did a game against True Talent today that I lost. That was a good game. There's some good back and forth to it. So I'm used to that style of play from a killer. I think there's a couple of main issues with the balance right now. I will admit that the survivor side needs some nerfs, but I think the survivor side also needs a lot more buffs, and the killer side does need a bunch of nerfs. That's what I'm going to talk about. The first thing that I want to talk about on the survivor side actually has nothing to do with the survivors, believe it or not. Well, yes and no. Car versus flashlight and the fear mechanic right now. So there's an issue to me off of the car. So let's say you're in a car and you want to drive somewhere. Your fear builds and builds and builds. But you get there faster. And the demon player sees where you are. The incentive is supposed to be the demon can possess your car and take it away from you. Which really is not impactful. And as a note on the killer, I think the possession cost on that needs to go down. Because it costs 100 energy up front. So it costs a third of your maximum possession bar to possess a car. And it can get depossessed quite easily. So, to me, it doesn't really matter on that side. I think car does need a nerf on the killer side of things, where the possession cost goes down. Maybe take it down from, say, 100. I've seen some estimates saying take it down to 50. Realistically, I'd take it down a little bit further. I'd take it down to maybe 35. Make it similar to like a track. Like a tree track. Because it's still going to have that continuous drain on it as well, which is the main reason why I'd take it down. But you're supposed to take the car to get somewhere quickly. Now the risk is, your fear builds, because you're technically in the dark, and the demon sees where you are, which are two things you don't want. Now the alternative is that you go on foot. But if you go on foot, you have the problem of being in the dark, your fear raises, and you run into enemies and stuff like that. The way I would fix this is to get rid of the match mechanic. Because they want you to reduce your fear through fire. And outside of the leaders who have the match, they have carry more matches, and they have some stuff around fear. Do the warriors don't have matches, do they? No, warriors don't have the matches. They don't have a lot of fear. I don't think hunters do either. No. They have a little bit of fear reduction. Supports have the extra matches. But like the supports and the leaders are the only ones that have extra matches. Why am I wasting my valuable perk slots? Like if I'm a level 25, like especially of support, if I'm level 25, there's no combat options that are available in your tree unless you're speccing in. And if you want to get the most out of your support, which is one of the main reasons why the supports got nerfed, which I don't really have a problem with the Cheryl nerf. I think the Cheryl nerf is actually good. I think right now, from a healing perspective, she's perfectly fine. And now, support Ash, I think he does need his heal back to 35. Either he needs his heal back to 35, or his heal should not be a flat amount, it should be based off of your weapon damage. So you should deal a percentage of the damage that you deal gets refunded as health, rather than a set value. Now that could be broken in melee-oriented builds, it could be buffed by other things, such as if you have an Arthur, if you have a leader Ash. So if you got like a leader Ash and an Arthur, and you run a warrior and a support Ash, you can have this really tanky lineup where you're just constantly in there swinging, and they give you a really good weapon like a blue or a purple sledgehammer. So I can see that being an issue. Just talking on that real quick. And you see how they want you to build in, especially on these characters, they want you to build into full fear, and they want you to build into matches and light and stuff like that. To me, fear is a very punishing mechanic. There's a lot of ways you can increase fear. Triggering traps, the demon dash, the puppeteer ability. The puppeteer has the ability where when he hits you with melee attacks, he inflicts fear on hit, which means a good puppeteer can possess a target, melee, get your fear up, depossess the target, and then possess you. So, to me, I think fear either needs more ways to bring it back down and bring it back in line, or, of a better point I would say, get rid of matches entirely. If you get rid of matches entirely, and just give every character a lighter, you could balance it off by saying, oh, so it takes longer to start fires. You could add an extra 2 seconds on, and I wouldn't really have a problem with that. But just giving infinite fire. That way there, hey, I see a fire, I can light it. I see a fire, I can light it. Or having, like, a tree trap active at every thing. Like, maybe you could have that in one of these, in a tree, in a skill tree. That, like, every tree trap is active near a fire at the start of a match. That to me makes sense. But I think the fear mechanic is a bit fucked up right now, and I have to stress that. There's not a lot of good ways to reduce fear, and there's no what the intended playstyle is as to how to get around doesn't make sense. So let's talk about the nerfs that I think the survivors need. I think the survivors, obviously, Army of Darkness Ashe is the one thing I see the most that needs to get nerfed, and I agree with that. So I'll get into that in a minute. But the one I disagree with that I see the most is Hunters. Now, Hunters are the ones that I hear, oh, they need a nerf. I don't think the Hunters need a nerf. I think the guns need a nerf. So, hear me out. So a lot of people talk about the Hunters in particular. Which, by the way, every Hunter has a weapon mastery. Kelly, who I think also needs a nerf, which I'll talk about in a minute, is the only one that doesn't have a gun mastery. So if you're actually trying to get the most out of your character, you need to spec into your gun. Hunter Ashe, at level 25, builds into the double barrel. And if you build him the right way, with just full gun build, he can deal insane amounts of damage to the point where you can one-shot possess heavy units without a headshot. If he's level 25, and if you've spec'd into him properly. That being said, a character like Amanda doesn't get the same benefits out of the double barrel, even if she's spec'd into it, because that's not what her kit is for. And I see a lot of people that don't build into their weapon of choice, and that's a bit annoying to me, because every character except Kelly has a thing. Now, Ed's doesn't really buff the crossbow as much. But my thing is the damage numbers on the guns are a bit too high. Why I say this is, look at a class like Warriors. Warriors have no guns built into their tree. No gun whatsoever. And they can only get 2 pink F slots in-game. I can still pick up a brown, or a common, if you will, a common gun. And depending on the gun I pick up, I can still one-shot basic units, or I can still tap it. Of the guns, the pistol is not a high damage option, but I can spam it out for balance bar damage, stun a target, and then go for melee. I see a lot of common complaints as well that balance bar damage is too high. I really don't know what you're talking about. When we get to the killer side, the killer video will explain why I think that. Mostly because the killer possession of a unit is too overpowered. Because if a killer, Necromancer is the obvious example with the broken Flutist build right now. But if a Necromancer possesses a unit, remember that it heals them to full health, heals all their limbs, and gives them a bonus to their health and damage while they're being controlled. In the case of the Flutist, who gives damage reduction and damage increase, that basically means he can 1v1 you. And even not on a Flutist, if you look at a Puppeteer, Puppeteer minions attack so fast they can stun lock you like a Hunting Knife. Now the Hunting Knife got a bit of a nerf with the animation cancel, which the Hunting Knife could use a little bit more. I would prefer if the Hunting Knife's combo ended in a heavy every time, to force you to slow down. So you can't just swing, 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 half second delay, swing, 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 swing. Puppeteer kind of needs the same thing on his basic unit. With AI control, basic units are nothing. But where he doesn't really have to stop swinging ever. He can just swing, 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 swing. I think all the melee weapons are pretty balanced. I think the spear is terrible and the meat hammer is terrible. I think those are the two weapons that need a buff. With the spear needing something about it that makes it relatively unique, and the meat hammer needs something signature, because that's Kelly's thing right there. That's her passive, and it don't matter. The meat hammer sucks. I mean, her avatar has her with the spiked bat on the screen. I would maybe switch out the weapon mastery for the meat hammer over to the spiked bat. Not to mention, she right now, I don't necessarily mind her having kind of a crappy passive there, because she really does have some broken build potential. The main thing to me is the guns. So, let's look at Kelly as a great example, because she probably has the least amount of damage in there. So you can build up your range, that's no big deal, really. The damage is the big thing, so you can build 25% off a hollow point. Headshot damage, you can build up 25% bonus on headshot damage, which is good, but that's not what I want to talk about. You can build up 15% from a distance, 25% from up close. Let's say you lean up close. So now you're looking at 25% bonus damage flat to the gun off of hollow points. Another 25% on top of that because of deadly up close. And then you can get 30% on the last bullet in the gun. So let's say you're running, the meta with Last Chance has been to run one-shot type weapons, like the crossbow and the blunderbuss. I don't really like that. I think if you miss your shot, you're kind of screwed. Against the blunderbuss has enough spread to it where, yeah, you'll hit your shot, but you might miss some of it if you're not at, like, point-blank range. Crossbow's kind of hard to hit, but the projectile, you don't need to fix that in my opinion. I think the crossbow's actually fine. I would just remove headshot damage from projectile weapons. That's the big thing I would do. That would hurt the saw gun, and that would hurt the crossbow. And that really just tones in the crossbow. It's a further nerf to the saw gun that it doesn't need. But, it's the only thing that needs to happen in crossbow. To me, the guns need to get fixed. So you're looking at 50, and then this brings it to 80. You can get 80% bonus damage without Pink F, without a weapon mastery, without anything else. Just off of 3 abilities, you can get 80% bonus damage to the last bullet in a gun within a certain distance. And that's at 16.4 feet. You do realize that's shotgun range. And most shotguns, the double barrel and the boomstick, they only have 2 shots in them. And they have a fast enough rate of fire where you can hammer those bad boys out. The guns need the nerf. I should not be able to take a weapon, like a boomstick, and one-shot an elite on a headshot. As a warrior. That doesn't make sense to me. Especially because the warriors aren't supposed to be spec'd into in guns. Legendaries really need to get toned down. I understand the point of a legendary because they're a bit rarer. But blues and purples on some guns. Some guns are good. Like, I stick with shotguns because they're high damage per shot. I like long gun ammo. Long gun ammo is pretty common. The revolver, to me, I thought needed a bit of a buff because the rate of fire was slow. No. I think that's a balancing mechanic on it. I think it's fine. I think the pistol could use either a damage nerf or a reload nerf. Either or, to me, would fix it. Hunting rifle could use a tad bit of a buff. I don't know in what, because it's high single shot damage, but the rate of fire and the reload is just too awful to me, particularly the rate of fire. The lever action could use a buff, but in the right hands, it's really good, especially if you have an upgraded version. Especially if you're going for headshots. In my opinion, like, the shotguns need to get toned down a bit. Like, all the shotgun varieties. If I get a blue of any type of shotgun, I'm set for the rest of the game. God forbid I get a purple or an orange. It's game over. And I understand that the point of, like, the weapon rarity is, you know, you get a higher rarity gun. But an overwhelming majority of the guns are good. In my opinion, the Saw Gun's the only gun that's unusable, which even in a legendary form is unusable. Then I would say the Blunderbuss, the crossbow, the lever action, the hunting rifle are situational if you like the gun or not. If you have a legendary of those, you're going to take it. If you have a purple of those, you're probably going to take it. I've turned out a purple lever action before, but I really just don't like the lever action. I don't think it does enough damage unless you hit headshots. The fact that people say the hunters need a nerf, I don't think their kit needs a nerf. I think what I would do on hunters is I would make it so that the guns overall get a bit of a nerf. It also doesn't help. The leaders can kind of spec in a little bit on guns. Because if you see right here, you have deep pockets in this part of the tree, which is almost mandatory to get I Can Help. If you want to get I Can Help here, you're gonna have to put at least 1 point in the deep pocket. So even though, like, Arthur here is a melee-focused character, he's basically a mini tank, so to speak, you're still gonna take deep pockets. And you can spec into the guns pretty easily here. Now, they don't have the insane damage potential that the other classes do, except for Annie. But being able to spec into these relatively early is really good. Now, the supports don't really have the ability to spec in if they want to do healing. And they have to choose. They don't get as much of a bonus if you choose to go the combat medic route. Warriors don't even have that tree, but it doesn't matter. I can play Henry the Red, find a brown boomstick, a brown double barrel, or a brown shotgun, and be good for the whole game. Because as a supplementary tool, it's broken for cannon fodder. If I have a lot of ammo in abundance, and I'm playing with people who are using pistols or crossbows, I'm gonna use my long gun ammo up. I think the guns need a nerf. I actually think that. I think that would balance more. For individual character balancing, the easiest thing to talk about is AoD Ash. Everybody talks about he needs a nerf. Now, I personally think the skill trees are fine on all the warriors. I think AoD Ash is strong. I really do. But I don't necessarily think he's strong off of his ability. A lot of people have mentioned this before about his power. Now, he's too strong. He is overpowered. You're going to see an AoE Ash in every game. If you're a bad killer, you're not winning. If you're a mediocre killer, you're probably winning. And if you're a good killer, you're probably winning. But AoD Ash does give you a strength. If you compare this to Leader Ash, who's a bit on the weak side, which I think you can fix this, and I want to mention this. So, Leader Ash here, he has his passive at level 10, where you start the match with a chainsaw. Okay? He's one of 3 characters that can use the chainsaw. Now, Hunter Ash, who's one of the other 3 who can use the chainsaw, has nothing to do with chainsaws in his kit. So we're not even going to talk about him. But Warrior Ash, who's the 3rd one that can use the chainsaw, has the weapon mastery on it. Now, to me, I don't think you need to nerf him. I just think you need to rework it a little bit. Take out one of your shield bars. Because he has 2 passives based around shields that make him, from the time you get him to level 10, he can carry you all the way to level 25. Just off of this one character. These 2 abilities combined are stronger to me than his active ability is. So, how would I fix that? Well, I would make him start the match with a chainsaw. You could take away either of these passives and give him a chainsaw at the start of the match, which would synergize well with Chainsaw Master. So he would still play like a warrior, he would still play like a tank, he would be more incentivized for a chainsaw though, because I'm not level 25 on Ash, on Warrior Ash. So guess what? I don't run a chainsaw, pretty much ever. I focus on a blue, purple type weapon, or I focus on a weapon that I like a sword, a sledge, a lumberjack axe, something like that. I ignore the chainsaw. The chainsaw to me is a detriment. So take away one of these 2 and switch it directly with Ash, particularly the finisher one on shield. Because if you take away Leader Ash's chainsaw and give him the finisher regenning shield, that would synergize well with El Jefe Grande. at level 25 anyways, to encourage you to go for finishers more. And that would make him feel like less like a jack-of-all-trades, master of none. Because you have Leader Ash right now, who's the jack-of-all-trades, master of none. And then you have Warrior Ash, who's the jack-of-all-trades, master of all trades. Now, why he's broken, by the way, on the shield, if you don't know. At level 10, you get your passive where every time you kill an enemy with a finisher, you recover 40 shield bar, which is about a quarter of your shield bar. And your default passive is that each time your shield loses a bar, you deal 200 damage, which is double what Scotty's active ability is on a 30-second cooldown. So, couple of things. The other issue that Ash has with this build, why it's so strong, is because he's a warrior. He can get 4 shield bars very early in the game. 1 crate is sometimes all you need to max your shield slots if you get 2 or 3 pink Fs. Because of that factor, he can be a tank very early on. And not to mention, what you can do is, you can sit there and farm finisher kills on easy-to-kill enemies, particularly Puppeteer minions, and be full shields without picking up a single amulet. To me, I would make it so that the shield blast only, if you didn't want to rework the passive like I want to with Leader Ash, make it so that shield blast will only trigger on shields that are generated from amulets and not from finishers. So you could have a shield off of a finisher, but it won't give the burst. Now, that to me would give him a little bit of tankiness, take away a little bit of damage. I don't think his active ability needs that much of a nerf, because people talk about, oh, his active ability needs a nerf. I don't really think it. So what it does is it gives you an upfront heal of 250 and 30 fear reduction. You could pretty much entirely remove that fear reduction. That does nothing. Get rid of that. The 250 heal up front is good. Now, I've heard some people say you should replace this and make it over time, like over the duration of the ability. I don't like that. I think you should use it as an upfront heal. It's kind of designed to be a chunky heal. He gets 50% damage reduction and 30% damage increase. I think the damage increase could get nerfed down a little bit, maybe to 20. I'd prefer 25, but definitely you could nerf it down to 20, because he does have a lot of damage into his melee. You can spec him for melee. I mean, if you look, 15% damage on melee. If you use light attacks only like I do pretty much, that's another 15%. So that's 30% bonus damage. Plus, if you build into the last word, now you're looking that final hit on a combo deals 50%. I mean, the final hit on a light combo is going to be, 80% bonus damage. That's not even including if you decide to spec into Weapon Master and stack on another 10 to 15%, I think the damage could get nerfed. I think the damage reduction is fine. It lasts for 25 seconds. Some people said 30. I only find it at 25 seconds. I think you could nerf that down. I think you could reasonably nerf that down to about 15 seconds, which is on par with other characters. Because if you look at the duration of most abilities, he's instant. 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 7 seconds, instant. We're talking about him. Instant. 40 seconds, but it has a different use. 7 seconds. 7 seconds. Instant. 6 seconds. Pretty much instant. The fact that he has the longest active ability outside of Ed, who is specifically disabling traps. He's supposed to have his ability up for a relatively reasonable duration. To me, nerf the duration down to about 15%. Maybe I would give him a little bit of a health boost to compensate if you felt like that was too much of a nerf. Maybe put him up to 350 on health restore, because I oftentimes find myself using Wise Man's Potion either for the damage reduction in the middle of a tough fight, and for the 1 invincibility frame, or as a health boost on the go. If I'm out of shimps, and I don't have a support, or I'm trying to get to a support, I can use the Wise Man's Potion and just knock it back as I'm walking through the woods, because especially with it helps the fear reduction. either that, another trade-off, if you didn't want to balance it at all, fuck it. Slap on the effect that while the perk is on cooldown, you deal slightly less damage, or you take slightly more damage to make you time your usage of it better. So, for the 25 seconds it's active, you get 30% bonus damage and 50% damage reduction. But for the 60 seconds while it's on cooldown, you deal 10% less damage and you take 10% more damage. That's something they could maybe look at trying to rework it. I simply think that the best thing that they could do is just swap out Finish Strong with Old Friend and be done. That would still make him a combat-focused warrior, but it takes away some tank, it takes away some sustain. A lot of people talk about Annie. Annie needs a nerf. I don't think she does. If anything, well, no, she does need a nerf. I agree with that. So I think Annie's perfectly fine. If anything, the hit him where it hurts ability should get nerfed down. I think you could nerf that down quite simply how Arthur's works. Where if you look at how Arthur's is, right, Arthur buffs his teammates where Arthur gives 30% bonus melee damage to his teammates. And if he is using a sword, he inflicts extra damage. He inflicts 50% extra damage instead of 30, but only affects him. So how I balance it for Annie is quite simple. Annie's active ability gives her 100% bonus damage, but it gives the teammates in her aura 50%. Half of what she gets. Now, does this nerf her role as a leader a little bit? Yes. Does it nerf her ability to be able to pop this with another hunter using a broken gun and let them basically one-clip a boss? Absolutely. Because hunters already have bullshit damage abilities. Their guns are insanely strong. Nerfing this ability balances that. I think the duration might be a little bit too long. I would maybe like to see the duration at 10 seconds instead of 15. But I understand why it's at 15. I think cooldown's fine where it's at. People talk about the balance bar a lot, and the only thing I would nerf on balance bar is Slugger grants 100% balance bar damage to boss units. That's gotta go. That goes down to like 15 or 25%. Realistically, you could just yeet Slugger at 25% flat balance bar damage right into Haymaker and just give her another level 25. Like, at the start of the match, something that could be broken on her is maybe, you know, like, knowledge is power, you could call it, where at the start of the match, she can see, for 15 seconds at the start of the match, she can see all of the map objectives. She can see the 3 map pieces, the pages, the dagger, and the dark ones for 15 seconds at the start of the match. That's something I would maybe do. That could make Annie more of a shotgun caller, pun intended, where she's like, okay, you're going here, you're going here, you're going here. Kind of split the team up a little bit too if you do it that way. I think she is relatively balanced. Now she has 10% bonus damage to ranged weapons and aura. I would buff that up a little bit to 15 or 20. If I'm being honest, I would buff that to 15 or 20. It doesn't make sense because of the fact that I'm talking about nerfing guns and nerfing hunters, but I'll explain why, because I'm going to cover the balance on the leaders real quick. And to me, that 10%, like, her passive, oh wow, I deal 10% bonus damage on that. Look at the numbers on it. If you're playing with a Kelly, and that Kelly is using a shotgun, which is 120 base power, and you're adding 10%, you're adding 12 damage, so it's 134. Now with the Hunter kit, yes, that's great and all, but you don't get those benefits. So if you're using a pistol, which is 55 damage, you're adding about 5 damage. So now you have a pistol that shoots 60. Ooh, wow, that's really good. Now, at 15 or 20, I think it puts her more in line. Arthur, I can't really talk about. I mean, he's fully dedicated to melee. And his weapon mastery for heavy attacks, which is kind of crappy, is paired with a sword. So I can't even balance that. The light attacks and the heavy attacks, 30%. pretty good. Fuel of Fire's pretty good, mostly because while you're performing a finisher, you're not getting any benefit off the Lord's Wrath. So if you pop the Lord's Wrath while you're by yourself, you're not getting any benefit out of it with the finisher. I really think it's fine. I think the fear reduction on Lord's Wrath could go if you want to nerf that. Other than that, I think it's perfectly fine. I think he's actually relatively balanced. Leader Ashe is the one that needs the nerf. Now the problem is, if you look, Annie gives massive range weapon bonuses. And Arthur gives massive melee bonuses. El Jefe is 10% flat damage. While that's nice, because it's ranged or melee, it's not enough. It's not enough of an aura. I could play Annie and get better buffs. Now you might say, well, he's built around fear resistance. Fear resistance, not fear reduction. Not preventing fear. Not like teammates that enter your aura, if they perform a finisher, can't have their fear increase for 5 seconds. Something like that. That's not what he does. He simply causes fear to go up slower, which isn't affected by a car or running through the woods realistically. It's not that good. He has the chainsaw, which is nice. It starts you with a decent weapon at least, so you don't have to go looking. But it also incentivizes you to stick with the chainsaw. But he doesn't get Chainsaw Mastery. Now, Chainsaw Mastery wouldn't fit right here because that would just make his passive even weaker. So, like I said, I would switch out Old Friend and put in the finisher one from Warrior Ashe, which would incentivize him to go for finishers more, to regen his shield, which would also buff up El Jefe Grande. He's really in a weird spot, too, where he is the jack-of-all-trades type, but master of none. His power is good. I hear a lot of people complaining, again, with the balance bar damage, with, oh, show up and blow up is terrible. Where I've heard arguments where maybe he should have, like, Haymaker as his passive and just completely remove El Jefe entirely. I don't think that fits. I think El Jefe's fine. They could buff the numbers. Maybe put him at 20% damage, or 15% damage, like I said on Annie. If they want to leave Annie at 10 and Arthur at 30, you could meet him in the middle and have him at 20%. That would be more reasonable. People say, well, you double the effects of your aura when you get a finisher or dismember an enemy. Yeah, but you're doubling 10%. That's 20%. Well, yeah, but you could stack that with Masters of Aura and strengthen his aura even further. But if you put 4 points into that, you're only strengthening his aura by 2%. Great job. A 12% damage bonus. Yay? No, it's not. If the damage bonus is what you're going for on El Jefe, it needs to be buffed. If the fear resistance is what you're going for, it needs to be buffed and you get rid of the damage bonus. On his power, I think his power is fine. I just wish it did something else. It's kind of lackluster that it's 30 seconds, it doesn't damage enemies. It just simply damages their balance bar, so you can get finishers off easier. Like, if it had a secondary effect, where, say, the demon couldn't possess any enemy, or unpossess any enemy, that was hit by it for a certain amount of time. Kind of locks him in place a little bit. That makes more sense to me. There's no real way to build him, and if they want you to build around, you know, the matches and light therapy and fear no evil, yeah, sorry, that's a bullshit-ass strategy. That's a lot of points wasted for something that your kit kind of passively gives you already. So, to me, he just needs a bit of a buff to his damage numbers in order to make him more viable. On the Hunter side, I don't really need to talk about Warriors. I think Henry the Red is fine. He is a little bit tanky. I think that Shields Up is kind of shit. I think Shields Up, realistically, could be completely turned into something else that gave him a little bit more damage. Because as it stands right now, the only thing that gives him damage in his kit is Rebound. So if you don't put any skill points into him, Rebound's the only way you're going to be getting any damage. And you have to take damage, or activate your ability, in order to get that effect off. So maybe getting Shields Up out would be helpful. If you're afraid of him being too much damage and you want to make him into a straight tank, you could maybe make shields up a bit stronger. I would prefer if instead of shields up starts the match with an additional shield bar, which kind of makes me not put points into shields, my pink F points into shields anyways, if you started the match with a shield active. That fixes that right there. He immediately starts the match with a shield. He's a little bit stronger. Realistically, though, he doesn't need any rework. I think he's balanced. People say Scotty's underpowered. I mean, the easiest way to fix Scotty is to just bump the damage on Thunder Thrust up to 200 damage, which is on par with Warrior Ash and his shield explosion. To me, makes perfect sense. But, to me, I think he's fine. People say, oh, he's weak. He plays an aggressive style of play, is how I see him really being played. Collateral damage, your heavy melee inflicts additional damage to nearby enemies. That, to me, is fine. I wish the damage number was higher than 13%. 13% is really an odd number. 20% is what I would put it at, and it would see a little bit more use. I think if you go above 20%, now he turns into support Ash. Now he's just doing nothing but heavy. Now you're having Hunting Knife Scotty, and I don't think you want Hunting Knife Scotty. I think you want him because, you know, he has the Lumberjack Axe. And on a Lumberjack Axe, you're not using your heavy at all. So it kind of is meh. Maybe you take collateral damage and rework it to where a successful heavy melee attack that hits an enemy increases heavy attack melee speed by 2% per consecutive hit. That could be something. So you could just keep chaining together faster and faster attack. It wouldn't buff his damage at all because he wouldn't be dealing it to nearby enemies, but it would buff his damage because he'd be getting more damage out per second. This would change him compared to Warrior Ash, who's kind of me big shield, me go boom, and Henry the Red, who is me big shield, me big health bar, me no go boom. It would let him kind of be in the middle of the caveman swing big stick genre. Exposure therapy needs a buff. 5 fear per kill is terrible. Put it at 10. I think going higher than 10 kind of takes away from some of the other supports, and which is kind of hard for me to say, given I want fear nerfed. So, saying that going above 10 would be broken, realistically speaking, you can chain together kills pretty easily. Exposure therapy is not meant to massively reduce your fear. It's meant to reduce your fear over time. So, the longer you're in a fight, the less likely you are to get possessed. That's what it's supposed to be played around. I mean, to me, I think he really should, because if you look, he's the youngest of the warriors. So, canonically, it would fit that he could swing faster. Supports are... I'm kind of doing a video right now. I'm almost done. For the supports are relatively easy to sum up. Pablo is casually broken off of Infernal Camouflage, where the demon player cannot see you. Unless he can physically see your character in-game, he can't see you at all. He can't see you if you fire a gun. He can't see you if your fear is maxed out. You could be screaming out of your mind, shooting your gun like frickin' Wild Bill, driving a car around the map while shooting your guns out the window like you're, you know, a stereotype of Texas or something. He couldn't see you. Casually broken. Balance factor, he deals no damage. So, I think he's fine. He generates an amulet as a power. 2-minute cooldown. Perfectly fine. He's built around amulets. I kind of wish there was a little bit of a better amulet ability for him, rather than at level 10, I get an extra amulet. Yay. So now I spawn with 2 amulets. And I can craft one. So I get 3 amulets essentially at the start of a match. I get 3 amulets, and that's worth both my active ability and a passive ability. Ooh. Ah. It's alright. It definitely synergizes well with warriors. Warrior Ashe, Henry the Red, they really like playing with Pablo. But the downside is, when your amulets are gone, guess what? You're gonna screw. His level 25 is nice, where your shield bar gradually recovers until you have one shield bar. Problem, you're always gonna have a shield. You craft shields. Kind of what you do. It's like a shitty Geico ad. If you're playing Pablo, you craft amulets. It's what you do. Yeah, so I think he doesn't need that much. I would maybe take Legacy of El Brujo and change it. Instead of beginning the match with an additional amulet, you could make it to where whenever you restore shielding off of an amulet to an ally, they take 10, 20, or 30% less damage for 5 seconds afterwards. This gives him the ability to make other characters slightly more tanky who might not be tanky. Does this run the risk of making a tanky character, cough cough Henry the Red, even tankier? Yes. Is that a risk you're willing to take? That's for you to decide, pretty much. Cheryl is fine. I think with them nerfing her healing numbers, the only thing I would really say is maybe the cooldown on healing touch going double, and them nerfing the healing per second might have been a little bit too much. I think doubling the cooldown was fine at 80 seconds. It does feel less impactful at 60 seconds, but I rarely use it anyways because I build her around Shemps. Like, literally every part of her kit is based around Shemps Colas. So I kind of build around that. I would maybe like it if Cola Coaster, which is her starting passive, where you carry more Shemps and you start with an extra one, if that made it where you no longer drop Shemps on death. That, to me, is better than carrying extra Shemps. I don't think she needs that. She can already carry, what, 6 Shemps? I think 6 Shemps is what most supports can carry. So her being able to carry 8 Shemps is not that big of a deal. The fact that she starts the match with an extra one is nice, but again, I would get rid of that like Legacy of El Brujo, rather than starting with the extra one, making it a bit more impactful. Other than that, because her healing is primarily based around a consumable, I think she's perfectly balanced, and like most support, she doesn't deal any damage. The support that I think they over-tweaked a bit too much is Support Ashe. I really notice his heal. Gone. His fear reduction is fine. That's it. It's fine. Maybe buff the area on it? That's the only thing I really gotta say. I think it's a relatively small area. Either that or just make it instant instead of a channeled ability. A channeled duration-based ability is kind of stupid. Because if an ally walks out of your range accidentally, they don't get the full 50 fear reduction. So I'd maybe make that instant, kind of like Scotty or Leader Ashe's ability, which is instant, even though it has an animation attached to it. His heavy melee attack heal got nerfed from 35 to 25. It wasn't doing much at 35. They nerfed it down to 25 because of the hunting knife, but they also took away the hunting knife animation cancel, which is what made it broken in the first place. So realistically, they should just give it back. Put it back at 35. I'm not going to complain at that point. Would I like to see it bumped up to maybe a percentage-based instead? So instead of a flat 35, if it was, you know, let's say 20% of the damage dealt by a weapon, which means to get more healing, you would build more towards melee damage, which would incentivize your build to go away from what all the other supports have, which is carrying extra Shemps, having extra health, reviving players with more health. Instead of making the supports all feel one-dimensional, because you build all 3 supports almost the exact same way. The only difference is you're going to throw a couple of points into Pablo's shield stuff, and that's it. To me, if you made Support Ashe build more into melee, which remember costs a lot more points to build into on the support tree, that could balance that out if it was percentage-based. Either that, or you just have a warrior give him a legendary sword and run the risk. But if a warrior is not using a legendary sword, he's not dealing as much damage. So it's kind of a trade-off where the Ashe is doing more healing, but now your warrior isn't doing as much damage. It's an interesting trade-off. It's something I don't think they want to do. To me, the part of his kit that kind of seems stupid is his mark target abilities, which is his passive at 10 and 25. Headshots mark a target, follow-up shots from teammates, not you, teammates. The first one is 30% bonus damage, and the second one is that 30% of the damage they deal gets restored to them as health. That would be nice if it was just a flat, hitting a target with a headshot gives 30 health to any ally within the vicinity. You could have one where it's in the vicinity of the shot, and one where it's in your vicinity. If you have it at 30 on a headshot, that would put him on par with the damage that he deals off of heavy melee. So you could focus him to use guns, or you could focus him to hit headshots, both dealing 30 damage a hit. At 30 damage, it might seem like 30 health a hit is a lot of health. It's really not. Remember that most characters' health bar is 1,000. So you're talking, you need about 30 hits in order to restore a character to full health. That is nothing. That's not gonna happen. What it would do is incentivize more gunplay out of him, which I feel he doesn't really do right now. I feel like he's kind of just, me go swing, swing, me have no health, me die. He's like the poor man caveman. On the hunters, Amanda's balanced if you play her in her role. She's designed to be played into pistols. That's her whole gimmick. You're supposed to play her into pistols. Now the pistol's already kind of a broken weapon because of stun lock. If you play her in a pistol, she's perfectly balanced because she's not getting the gaudy damage numbers that the other hunters are getting. What she's getting is the ability to stun lock a killer, and she's getting the ability to shoot a lot of bullets if she pops her power. When she's not using her pistol, now she's getting gaudy numbers, and she doesn't have to reload for 7 seconds if she pops her power with, say, a blunderbuss. To me, I would kind of just lock ammo for days and make it so that you have to have at least 50% of the gun's ammo in order to activate the ability. So you still wouldn't consume any ammo. You still wouldn't have to reload. But you'd have to have 50% of the gun's ammo in the gun to activate the ability. This would keep her from getting down to 1 bullet, then spamming her ability to have unlimited ammo with last chance active, so every bullet's now dealing 30% more damage, which is bullshit. At that point, she becomes broken. So just locking that ammo restriction is fine. Either that, or another thing you can do, so she has trusty sidearm, which is you start the match with a pistol. To me, what I would add a caveat to that, where either you start the match with, say, a blue pistol, or the first chest that you search has a 25% chance to have a higher rarity pistol. To make her want to stay on her pistol, as opposed to just, ooh, me find big boomstick, me go bye-bye now, and never touch a pistol again. Hunter Ash is balanced. People who say that Exorcist is a broken ability clearly don't understand that you just cause him to be feared first, and all your problems are solved. Not to mention, it only works on survivors or basic units. If you have a build that's based around possessing an elite unit instead, Exorcist is basically negated. I think the ability's balanced. Anybody who says the ability's broken, it's strong, it's not broken. And again, he's perfectly balanced if you spec him into his gun. If you spec him into the double barrel, he's fine. Again, do the same thing that I did with Amanda with him. Make it so that he either starts with a blue double barrel, or, this is my thing, make it so that if he drops his double barrel and doesn't pick up an upgraded version of it, then he loses, like, ammo, or he loses a little bit of damage. I mean, the name of the ability is literally, I'm the guy with the double barrel. Kind of give him a penalty if he drops his double barrel or something like that. If you spec him into it, he's fine. People say Ed is broken. Ed right now is considered to be the 3rd or 4th most broken character because his flashlight disarms traps. Okay. That's a fair point. Counterpoint. His passive perks are shit. Think about it. Enduring Light doubles the battery life of your flashlight. Is absolute garbage. You don't run out of flashlight in a game. Okay? If you run around the game with your flashlight on all the time, you're an idiot who's blinding your teammates, and you really, really, really need to, like, stop doing that. Because it hurts my eyeballs. And my earballs. And my regular balls, too. So stop it. That being said, it's a shit ability. Okay, fine, that helps balance it out. Weapon Master, crossbow. Well, the crossbow is a very specialized weapon. It's hard to hit. It's a one-shot. While that is good, because he's a hunter, the easiest thing I would do is to balance the crossbow, like I said before, take off headshot damage. If the projectile weapons, that being the saw gun and the crossbow, lose their headshot bonus, crossbow balanced. You're not one-shotting anything at that point, except for basic units, which is how it should be. Because right now, if you fully spec into the crossbow, you can get, I think it's like 1,700 on a headshot, which is half of a health bar of a boss unit. So 2 headshots is enough to outright kill a boss at that point. Yeah, that's a tad bit overpowered. Take away his headshot. If you take away the headshot bonus, Weapon Master, plus a normal hunter build, plus 5 pink F points into range weapon, but with no headshot bonus, you're looking at 1,100. Now, that's still enough to one-shot elite units. But realistically speaking, that's only if you have Weapon Master. So, and if you don't like the crossbow, a lot of people don't like the crossbow. There's some people who swear by it, say it's the best weapon in the game, and there's some people who say it's trash, they won't pick it up. Guess what? Then you could easily say it's a shit perk. At its level 25, which kind of doesn't count because it's hard to get to a 25 character, it only works at the start of the game, realistically. It makes it so that all crates that spawn at the beginning of the game spawn with a higher rarity. And you might say, well, that's not true, because you spawn a crate whenever you collect the pages and the dagger, but they're fixed. The first crate that spawns is always going to be blue, and the second crate that spawns is always going to be purple. Those are fixed spawns, it's not going to change those. So those specific crates, which are the only ones that aren't predetermined, are going to be fine. So essentially what this means when you run this perk is, you might get a few more legendaries or a few more purples, but the drop rate on purples is high enough as is. I can play an entire match where I get fucking, you know, 5 to 6 purple drops easy, and the match ends in 10 minutes because the demon just slaughtered us. The other bonus that he has where it increases the chance that defeated enemies will drop items. Here's the thing. What does a demon drop most of the time? Ammo. Ammo is worthless. You have a 1 in 3 chance of getting what you need, which means you're just picking it up for somebody else, and you're going to lose it when you die anyways. I mean, if you wanted to rework this and make this quote-unquote balanced, I would just make it so instead of increases the chance that enemies drop items, make it so that you don't drop items when you die. Or you don't drop your ammo when you die, if you think keeping the colas and the amulets is too strong. Realistically speaking, he has 3 non-impactful passive abilities to make up for him having a strong ability. I'm fine with that. Kelly, to me, is the one hunter I'm nerfing. If I'm nerfing one hunter, I'm nerfing her. For one reason, and it's one very simple reason. So if you have a hunter who already has buffed up stamina, and you build them for buffed up stamina, remember, they can get 25% maximum stamina, they can reduce the stamina cost of dodging by 35%, and you put 5 pink F points into stamina, you can get 10 dodges off before you run out of stamina. Just to put that in perspective, 10 dodges is about 30-35 yards in-game, roughly. You can clear almost an entire objective length. No, I think you can clear an objective length. So, objective length is what, 28 yards? Yeah, you can clear an entire objective length in 1 stamina bar. So, hunters are able to run away. Now, the balancing factor is that, you know, they have lower health to compensate. Fine. Her ability makes it so that she gets infinite dodges while it's active. Her dodges do not consume stamina. There's a very easy fix to this. When she activates the ability, her stamina bar is immediately drained and doesn't begin recharging until your ability ends. Very simple fix. Fixes that right then and there. It's a 5-second duration. So you have to choose. You get 10 dodges that consume stamina, or You get 10 dodges that don't consume stamina, but it takes your stamina bar away anyways. That would force her to play more around Slipshot, and it would keep her from abusing the mechanic of dodge 9 times, pop your ability, dodge 10 more times, and then dodge 1 more. Because remember that your stamina recharges while your ability is active. So if you dodge 9 times, activate your ability, dodge 10 times, your stamina bar is now recharged, you get another 9 dodges. I've gotten 30 dodges off in approximately 15 seconds before I run out of stamina. Yeah, that's an easy fix. No, because her ability, she has another effect on her ability where your ranged attacks cause 20% of their damage as bleeding damage. So every bullet that she fires deals an additional 20% of its damage, but is bleeding damage over time. No, because the issue that she has is when she activates her ability, she doesn't consume stamina, which means her stamina bar begins recharging instantly. Which means when her ability ends, she's full stamina and gets another 10 dodges. That's why I would say, if it completely drained your stamina as soon as you activate the ability, it would take away her ability to spam the stamina. Well, no, because then that punishes you a little bit too much. If you stop the stamina drain altogether, where she can't recharge stamina at all, the issue where that becomes, if you drain your stamina all the way down, there is a 2-second extra delay before it begins recharging. If you drain your stamina all the way down and then activate your ability, she's never getting her stamina back. She's gonna be dead by that time. Because once she stops dodging and her power ends, she now has to wait 4 to 5 seconds before she can do anything again. That would leave her a little bit too vulnerable. It would also, most tellies anyways have an issue where they don't fire their gun at all when their ability is up, even though it gives bleed damage. If they spec in a little bit more to the bleed damage, that could also fix it. Especially because she has a passive where your next range attack after a successful dodge inflicts 5% weapon damage per second as bleeding until the target dies. And it stacks, by the way. So if she dodge, shoot, into the same target, that's 15% bonus weapon damage per second until it dies. Which is a relatively slow way to kill a boss unit, but it's a good way to 1v1 a boss. So I kind of want to keep that mechanic in play, because it's pretty difficult to actually dash and shoot at the same time. Because you actually have to, when you dash, it drops your reticule. It drops your aiming reticule, and there's about a half a second delay before it actually comes back on screen and you can fire your gun in between. And that half-second delay, you can be interrupted on. If you get hit while you're aiming, it knocks you out of aiming at any point in time. So it really, there is a bit of a skill involved to that, where I think just simply taking all of her stamina out as soon as you press the ability kind of balances it out. Anyways, that would be my thoughts on the Survivor side of balance for